Okay, so for I mean, any business that's looking to head towards net zero, which I guess is the vast majority, if not all of them, I guess one of the things they need to understand is that they're potentially very difficult to achieve that objective without having a sort of serious look at their IT estate. Is that reasonable to say that?
I think that is absolutely spot on. I think that it's not just the IT department that has a responsibility to help the board and the C-suite get to their ambition of net zero. It's every business unit owner, but certainly within the guise of any commercial organisation today, the IT department has a big role to play.
And I believe that roughly about, is it only a third of businesses actually have a net zero? So clearly when it comes to the IT estate, a lot of them haven't even, formed an overall strategy, let alone started to identify where they can, make big improvements.
I think that's probably about right. I couldn't actually comment on that, but what I would say is that I think this year, following COP28, which was in November, December last year, I feel an absolute surge of demand of people wanting to understand how they can be better at doing their business. And I think there's an alignment of organisations. So within the UK public sector, for instance, the government will have a requirement of a carbon reduction plan in their specifications. So if you're a supplier that has a carbon reduction plan, you're likely to win more of their business than if you didn't. So I think that's going to kind of run a part of your carbon reduction plan as a supplier to government might also include my suppliers have a code of conduct, which means they also need to have a carbon reduction plan to me. And so it kind of trickles downhill a little bit to the SMB market. It is complicated because a BAU and doing things in a fashion that we always have done has created a problem, and we need to change how we behave to affect a net zero balance. And it's understanding in the guise of a small business what changes you can make to help your bigger customers want more of your business. So having that alignment to your customers is probably a good place for most organizations to begin their journey to net zero if they haven't already started it, and then make some changes that affect a positive outcome.
And is it still the case that a lot of organisations, they understand, if you like, their obligation around net zero and sustainability, but when they start sort of thinking about it in a bit more detail, that they become, I don't know, either overwhelmed or they just don't know how to go about putting together a plan? Is that still the case, or have people got beyond that?
And I think that is absolutely the case. I think that the challenge for most organizations is that sustainability and thinking about sustainability consumes a huge amount of time. So you need to have bandwidth in the team to take on the challenge of addressing sustainability. So firstly, can I understand it? And just using the carbon agenda as the driver is a good one, but having buy-in from the MD, who to date might only be looking at financial returns to my shareholders, is the most important thing on my desk. Well, actually, that might not now be the case. It might be closely aligned to, and I need to drive sustainability into my business, but I don't have time to do that within the frame of my day-to-day job. I need to employ a specialist, or that could be externally or internally. And then with the specialist, am I sure that I'm getting best value for money and that they're looking after my interests and not purely fueling their own? And that's where it's complicated for a lot of organizations, is knowing where to start the journey often delays the start in the first place.
And I guess certainly in the early days when people are looking at this, one of the easiest approaches was carbon offsetting. The idea, I guess, in its simplest form, that whatever your carbon footprint, if you plant the right amount of trees or pay for that to be done, you've kind of achieved a balancing out of neutrality. Is carbon offsetting still sort of credible, or has it become sort of just as a bit of an easy option, and means people aren't really changing their the way they operate? They're just saying, okay, we'll plant some trees and job done. Yeah, just your thoughts as to whether, carbon offsetting is still a reasonable option for people, if you like.
I think that so I think the answer is this. A lot of people poo-poo carbon offsetting because there are some again, knowing who to trust in the carbon offsetting world is a really difficult thing to do. We have a reforestation scheme, and we don't do that to offset just as a matter of fact. We do that to create social value. So where we choose to plant our trees, and we have hundreds of thousands of trees in the ground now, that creates an education for that local society. It creates an income for that local society. And of course, it has environmental benefits such as it creates biodiversity. It helps cool the planet by creating shade. It creates rain, and also it does sequester carbon. But using trees as an offset, in my opinion, is not a good practice because it's too easy nowadays to buy a beer. We'll plant you a tree. Okay, well, are you actually planting me a tree? I don't know. How do I audit that? I don't know. So that becomes complicated. So the first thing with understanding your carbon is to audit your business from a production and an operational perspective and understand what carbon you currently emit. If you understand that, and that will create a number. In our case, I think it's plus or minus 2,500 tons, and we have a carbon reduction plan. But I can either choose to offset my 2,500 tons, or I can choose not to. If I don't, then actually I personally feel, and this business feels, that we're not doing the best job we can. So we choose to offset it, which has a benefit to society, rather than not benefiting society. And we invest into energy projects that create a carbon credit. The next part, so I believe in offsetting is a better thing to do than not doing it, if that makes sense. If you don't have a carbon reduction plan, then that isn't good practice. So for us, our carbon audit says your logistics partners need to have, because 50 or so percent of our carbon footprint is in the movement of product. So when you make a product and you move a product, it creates a carbon footprint. So what you need to do is look into your own supply chain and understand which suppliers you're going to work with that are going to help you lower your own carbon emissions within what they call a Scope 3 environment, so purchased goods and services. So if we can get sustainable aviation fuel, for instance, then that creates a lower carbon footprint for the organization, but the cost per unit will increase. And then we have to think about, well, will the customer pay for the sustainability benefit of lowering the carbon footprint? And there lies the balance between commercial reality and driving a sustainable outcome. And somewhere in there is the truth. As sustainable aviation fuel becomes more mainstream, so the cost per unit will reduce, and we can then pass that benefit on to the customer. But for right now, we're doing the best job we can with what's available for us to buy for our customers.
And in terms of sort of focusing in on the IT hardware itself, I believe that the majority of the hardware carbon footprint is actually to do with I suppose the raw materials, the actual, and then the manufacture of whether it's the servers or the laptops. That's where the biggest amount have, as opposed to the power required to run them. Is that right?
Yeah, that's kind of a matter of fact. But so when we think about IT hardware, it's easy for us to focus on things like laptops because everybody uses a laptop. 85 to 90% of the carbon footprint comes from the factories that produce the laptop in the first place, and the fractional percentage comes in the use phase and some logistics, but mainly the use phase and the production phase. So if you procure your laptop only from a brand new source, then plus or minus a third of a ton of CO2 is your liability. You have that liability because you've chosen to buy that asset that has a liability of a third of a ton. It doesn't mean a lot to most, but a third of a ton is just a number. So to kind of frame that for us, we would go, well, if 3 laptops equals 1 ton, that's a matter of fact. That doesn't mean anything either. So 1 ton is 19,000 cubic feet of air mass. Right, so all of a sudden we can kind of figure out what that is. 19,000 cubic feet as an air mass is about the size of a 3-bedroom house, of the air in the 3-bedroom house. So for those organizations that have, say, 3,000 laptops, every time they buy a brand new laptop every 3 to 4 years, they're letting off indirectly the equivalent of 1,000 3-bedroom homes of air mass into the atmosphere, which obviously then creates a blanket effect around the atmosphere, which then retains the heat of the sun's rays, which is a contributing factor to global warming.
Okay, and I guess that's where yourselves come in terms of the remanufacture of IT hardware, because that clearly isn't building stuff from new, but it's taking an existing asset where all that carbon footprint, if you like, is embodied already, and giving it a new lease or extending its life. So yeah, can you just talk us through I guess the logistics of that process?
Yeah, of course. So we're a circular economy pioneer. The circular economy, which is an emerging economy, but has a regenerative, restorative, and a zeroing out waste agenda. So how can we move away from linearity to circularity? We decided to figure out how to do this job with laptop technology, which takes a once-used laptop. We remanufacture it back to a brand new condition. And that condition, by the way, is specified by the British Standards Institution, which is based here in the UK. They're a feeding organisation to ISO, and their standard says our products must be made equal or better than new, with a warranty that is equal or better than new, and that's the standard. It's a very difficult job to do. We're the only factory globally that can do that job to that standard. So we have something very unique to offer the world. In the same way that Windows provides Windows and Apple provides Apple, Circular Computing provides remanufactured laptops to this standard, and it makes it very easy, therefore, for big users of IT, government departments, and big industry to specify. Whereas, say, refurbished, which has been in the market for a very long time, so it's a very mature market, serves a completely different customer. We decided to service industry and big customer like the government, because we felt that the change required to tackle some of the planetary issues we have are best served by the bigger customer, and that's where we find ourselves today.
And in terms of the carbon savings potential, I mean, you obviously use the analogy there for the laptops and the houses, if you like. Are you able to sort of give us a comparison as to what remanufacture as opposed to the building from new?
Yeah, of course. So the maths is about 300. The actual mass is roughly 331 kilos of carbon equivalent for a brand new laptop, and it's 15 kilos for a remanufactured laptop. So the actual savings about plus or minus about 95% for the customer. So with new carbon reporting directives coming through, they can actually say we've changed our procurement to adopt remanufactured IT. The carbon benefit for my company is about a third of a ton to the right side of the line, and they can report that in their annual audit in the same way that they would report on their finances.
And are there any associate? I mean, in terms of the costs, one might imagine that it would be less expensive to buy an item which is being remanufactured as opposed to created from new. Is that right, or just again a comparison between buying brand new and remanufactured?
I like that question because to get sustainability generally in society generally costs you more money. So if you think about organic fruit and vegetables, you'd expect to pay more money because you're buying them locally, you're buying them in smaller quantities and so forth. You want to buy an electric vehicle, generally it's going to cost you more money than a diesel or a petrol vehicle to get into that game. When we talk about sustainable IT, we retain all of the value of the former asset. So that value kind of comes to us, we then add significant value to it by remanufacturing it, and it comes to the next customer at about a 40% saving against where they currently would be paying. So if you think about a laptop estate again of 1,000 or 2,000 devices, for every 1,000 devices someone would pay, they're going to be saving about £300,000 to £400,000 on their procurement. And again, whilst in the eyes of the public sector, when they're going through really harsh financial pressures at the moment, those sorts of savings are being sought after by the customer, but they can't do that where if they felt that they were being compromised in operation. So the exploration of adopting this sort of technology with the customer in the early rounds of conversation with them is a big part of the job for us, to get them comfortable with changing their strategy, to adopting our technology for the benefit of the public purse and obviously for the planet.
I guess that sort of the crux of it is, for many organizations, many of the applicants, etc., they don't need the sort of latest and greatest tech. Remanufacturing is good, but I don't know whether it's just a perception issue, or as you say, a lot of companies just have this automatic every 3-4 years we're gonna buy a load of new servers or laptops, full stop. So is there still a need then to change people's minds to understand that shiny and new is okay, you're used to that, but it really doesn't actually help you do your bring that many benefits to your business, any, and the remanufacture route has significant benefits, both, as you said, environmentally and financially?
I think the answer to the question is perception is our biggest competitor. So working with the stakeholders within the organization is the C-suite want to leave their legacy. They want to leave a lighter footprint. So we can really work there. The CIO and the CTO, they want cheaper products so that their IT budget can be stretched into more pressing matters like digital transformation and so forth. It's the support team on a daily basis that need to be really communicated with in the right way, because at the moment they don't have a job to fix, if you think of it like that. They're given some money by finance, they buy some laptops, they give them to people to work, and then they go home and sleep. They have the very same experience when they buy my technology. Yet they see a perception with my technology because no one ever got fired for buying brand new, those old words. So our job is to kind of almost ask every stakeholder for a no, and be kind of brave enough to say, look, if you give me a no, then I'm gonna accept that. But to not explore with us is the wrong thing to do, because I'm telling you, we have enough people who are like you as an organization that are benefiting, that will speak on our behalf to you if you so wish. And so we start with things like pilots and proof of concept, take some product. I'm telling you that you will see no operational lag from a performance or a quality perspective. Now, it's fair to say that I would be happy to say to most large organizations that we could not be the sole provider of 100% of their estate. And the reason that is that they will have requirements from performance users that need absolute power. And even if they bought a brand new device today, fully loaded with the fastest technology, tomorrow it's out of date, and they'll want to be buying that one. So like the data architects, the big graphics users, those customers, they're not my customers. But for the majority of white collar workers, I put the analogy like this: I live in Brighton, and I commute to Portsmouth twice a week, where the offices are. If I had a Ferrari or I had my Mini, they get to Portsmouth, or plus or minus about the same time, because the roads are restricted to speed and everything else. Maybe the Ferrari is a little bit quicker off the mark, but within a tolerance of a couple of minutes, we're going to arrive at the same time. It's the same as saying a current day machine might be slightly faster, but it might be 1% of 100%. So you're not going to see the difference really. It's less than the blink of an eye. So as long as you're comfortable to recognise that you might have been over specifying for a very long time based on the demands of the supply chain rather than your own needs. So that might look something like, answering the question, Steve, that might look something like, we have a 4-year device strategy. Okay, why is that? Because that's what finance tell me to do, because we write it off over 4 years. Okay, so let me just get this right. The finance department, who are not qualified to talk about IT, are defining your hardware strategy because they write it off over 4 years. That's right, Steve. Okay, well, let's challenge that, shall we? Because I don't think that's a good strategy. You're not getting best value. And then, so that's option one. And with that strategy for the last generation, 25, 30 years, the OEMs, the manufacturers of new equipment, who are now producing 8 laptops a second, that's the rate at which they come out. And with mobile technology, by the way, that's 5x. So that they require the consumer market to behave in a certain way so that they can deliver product in a manner that they think the consumer wants to buy it, like just in time. You go to Amazon, I want a new something, and it arrives the same day a lot of the time. There has to be the supply chain and consumer balance. So what we also have evidence of is that with COVID, if you slow down the supply or you increase the demand, then the whole supply chain buckles. And it's a really fragile thing. It's very deep and it's very wide, which we need to protect. It has trillions of dollars in it, and it employs millions of people. So all of that needs to be sort of protected in the short run. Yet the Northern European, the UK market is really mature in its population. It does grow, but not significantly, and it's very mature in its digital journey. Whereas, say, India, Sub-Sahara, and China, they're kind of the growth markets and where the manufacturers of new products are kind of focusing right now. And they're trying to figure it out with us. So we have a great relationship with the OEMs. They have a lot to protect, but they realize that their customers are changing in the Western world, in the mature markets. They're changing. They're demanding more out of them. So crossing this bridge together in the same way that the fuel market, fossil fuels and renewable energies, the transportation industry, electric vehicles, and again, the diesel and petrol cars, we have to coexist whilst we go through the change. And no one knows how long that change is going to be. But again, working with suppliers like Circular Computing, who have gone to the lengths over the last 10 years to get themselves in an orderly shape so that customers can rely upon them in their provision of product with a kite mark that's verified third party at a price point that they can work with. That's the hard part for most people entering into, going back to your earlier conversation, Philip. How do they get started? We can help within the IT space. We can help the customers really easily put that shoe on.
Okay, and perhaps in summarizing, if it's possible to do so, how do you view the remanufacture market in terms of where you're at now, and the potential, as you explained there, in terms of working alongside the OEMs and how the balance might shift over a period of time? Just your thoughts, I guess, as to how big the opportunity could be over time.
We see the market in the short run probably at about 12.5% to 15% of market share available to us. Now, obviously, we have as an organisation production capabilities to a certain scale. So building this out is something that is going to be the major challenge. So making sure that the market does exist to supply product to, rather than, as we have done, investing tens of millions of dollars over the last 10 years ahead of the market actually being around. But we actually predict 12.5% to 15%. And if that was true, then that's a billion dollar industry right there, which would be amazing. But it would take a huge effort in terms of personnel to educate, to take the customers on their journey, to kind of build that up, to make sure that customers don't feel compromised or nervous. That's about building a brand that can be trusted, that communicates to its audience in the right way, which is why we've invested in understanding the deeper art of sustainability. Technology and sustainability are two different, as you probably know, are two different languages, and most technical guys don't have time to learn and study the language of sustainability, and that's where we help. We're kind of like the linguist between the two verticals in the organization. And what actually happens is the IT team, who, let's face it, the IT team, no one ever thanks them for doing their job. They just get kicked when the stuff doesn't work. When they figured this out, they peer to peer, they're made the hero in the organization, because and rightfully so, the chief exec will say, everybody in the other departments, facilities, real estate, fuel, transport, hospitality, whatever IT have done, they've reduced my operational cost, they've decreased my carbon footprint, and they've embedded best practice into my business. Can you all pay attention and do what they've done? And that's when the actual realization from IT is, this is a great decision for me. I'm no longer under the stairs, hidden away from everybody's view. I'm now kind of the practitioner of best practice, and everyone knows who I am. And that's when the magic happens.
Okay. I mean, it's been brilliant to chat, and some really great insights into what's going on. Steve, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Cool. Very nice. Thank you, Philip.